Hello and welcome to the Customer Acquisition Show. I am your host, Tom Meredith, and today I am joined by a reoccurring guest who's on quite often. Oha, welcome again.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here. So Oha is really one of our team leads for any sort of customers that come in that really are starting their journey from growing their digital marketing outside of their smaller in-house team. So a lot of times she'll be working with them on improving their offers, their account structure, basically all of the different things within digital marketing to help them get ready to grow and scale. So today we figured nobody better to have on than to talk about foundational marketing than Oha.
Yeah. Let's start our
Yeah,
discussion. I'm
sure.
really curious.
Yeah, so I think one of the main things is probably mindset, right? So a lot of customers who come to us and have been doing things either by themselves or have a super small team, they come to an agency, like there's a bit of a mindset shift. Can you talk a little bit about where they are and how you try to coach them to where we want them to be?
Yeah, so usually customers are coming to us with some specific goal in mind. And if we're talking about smaller businesses, I believe the most common request is that they want to grow and scale their business. So that's their number one goal and request. And often they don't know. I mean, they just have that goal, and probably in a lot of cases they just imagine that we would increase the ad spend, launch a few more campaigns in Facebook Ads Manager or on other platform, and then it will help them eventually to grow and scale the business. And very often it's much more complex, because when we start evaluating the offer, the funnel, the landing page, the messaging, creative strategy and everything, we found a lot of not like issues, but room for improvement. I'd like to position it like that. And after that we start the discussion with customers that, okay, we found this and this issue, we could help you to address it like this. Here is our possible plan A, plan B, and how do you want us to proceed. So as I said, often customers are coming for us specifically for running ads, but it's at the end of the day, it's not just for running ads. We help them to grow their business and to improve all areas of their business. And I would even say that literally all of these parts are as equal as Facebook ads. They're not as important, as equally important as Facebook ads. And it's not like you just need to run ads and all of the small things they don't have any impact. In some cases we could find some things or some improvements that could have even bigger impact. Yes, so
Yeah,
that's
no, I was gonna say, like, if especially thinking about Facebook ads, Facebook ads is really this giant machine of diminishing efficiency, right? So it's always gonna find the lowest hanging fruit. And if you're a small business with a smaller ad spend, it's gonna be really good at finding that low hanging fruit. But as you try to scale and get bigger, it's gonna be harder and harder to get
yeah.
customers because they're gonna be more difficult, require more selling, probably more touches. And that's really the big mindset shift I think we all have to deal with. I mean, not just smaller customers coming here, but every step of that you want to grow and scale, you have to become better at selling your product. And it's just a bit of a mindset shift because, what got you to where you are is not going to get you to, or not take you
Yeah,
to where you want to
yeah,
go.
yeah. I strongly agree with this statement, and that's. I mean, sometimes it takes a lot of discussions for us to convince the customers to switch their mindsets and to switch their shift to the changes that need to be made in order to achieve success. So yeah, I agree with you. That's an important part of our job, is to educate them, talk with them about how these things have impact on their performance. Just for example, one of our new customers that we recently onboarded, they came to us and they have really great product. They have program, but what we saw from about their product, they are using really generic messaging. I mean, that's I see this mistake a lot of times in a lot of businesses when brand messaging is just so vague. They just try to make everyone like them, and that's not the right attitude. I just heard that nice quote: "Are you a Google? If you're not a Google, then you shouldn't be good for everyone." But even Google has competitors. But you could just imagine that almost everyone is using Google. And for if we're talking about any other service, I'm sure that you should. Like relying on my experience and everything, I know that you should be specific. You cannot be like, okay, everyone will find something here, everyone will like our product. You should definitely know your avatar and build your messaging based on that. So I believe that's like number one thing that is missing, that still a lot of businesses, they are like just skipping this important part: marketing research, deep dive, and avatar research. And after that, they just go strictly to build their offer, their brand messaging, and they're like, oh, I don't want to be too specific because what if I will be wrong? So I instead they go really broad. And that's not the, I mean, that's not, as you mentioned, that's the thing that could bring you to this point, but that's not the thing that will bring you to the further success.
Yeah. We can get back to all that. We have a returning, commenter, Anthony, who's always chiming in with great questions. So I want to make sure we get to our questions pretty quickly. So Anthony's question is, how long is your discovery process when onboarding new clients? So I know you've worked quite a bit with our sales team, and you've onboarded quite a few clients. Can you talk a little bit about what the process is currently?
Yeah, so when we're onboarding new customers, at least we deep dive and audit their account for at least like 2-3 weeks. Usually it takes like for the team, because we want to evaluate everything we could get access to. And I'd like to say that lately when we are improving our process, we are adding more and more layers of analysis to this. I remember like 2 years ago, mostly we were evaluating their ad account. And today we want to evaluate everything, their like backend, if they have email sequences set up, for example, how well is working their referral program, if it's referral program, just an example, how well is working their landing page. So all of this like small pieces of success. Now we have pretty big checklist, what we need access to, what we need to check and evaluate, and based on that prepare our recommendations that will help them to achieve sustainable growth and performance, and not just improve their Facebook ads results. So I could definitely say that it's not ideal process, and we're always like adding more and more value to this. But I really like how well it's now covering all the things that are important. And yeah, that's usually not 1-2 day process. Usually it takes at least a few weeks.
Yeah, and I know we're always, like you said, improving on this. And lately we've been doing an even bigger push on like getting a lot more clear expectations before we
Yeah,
actually onboard. Like our scope of work is like super dialed in. And we've been, we talked about this a little bit earlier about changing mindsets and all the foundational stuff that has to go in to bringing a new client on. And we're even getting a lot more strict about that now, where potentially the first month we just keep the current ads running, but do so much work on the tracking, the data layer, the deep dive research for the creative, and making sure everything is foundationally and basically all the machine is working as it needs to, so that when we do go to grow scale and like months 2 and on, like everything is there working, and then we can know how well our actual work is doing on both the media buying and creative sides. And conversion architecture also happens pretty early on, which is our funnel building service. All right, so going back to vague versus specific, like how do you teach your clients like the importance of specific and help their fear of like that they might be missing out on somebody?
Yeah, so it's the process, as I mentioned, sometimes it takes a bit longer and it takes like a few meetings to convince them. But Usually they are super impressed by the creative strategy that is presented by our creative team. So it helps a lot, because when our creative team is working on creative strategy, they're also working on avatar research. And when they present it in a really clear and simple way to the customer, that here are three kind of like avatars for your business, here are this person day-to-day activities, here are this person's pain points, here is this person's feelings and frustrations and objectives. It's really an objections to for buying your offer or product. It's much more simpler than just to start talking, okay, your messaging is too vague. So usually we come prepared with this like really great presentation showing like, okay, here are your avatars, here how we'd like to um, overcome the objections, here how we'd like to talk with them. So it's much easier. But also we explain to them that they know these things, they just don't acknowledge that. They know their customers really well because they read their feedback, their testimonials, they know what they like in the product. So they know all of this information, but they might have second thoughts, or maybe they never sit down and like think through this. Okay, if I know all these things about this, about my avatar, why I'm not using that? Usually when we start asking like, okay, what do they like, what don't they like, why they choose you over competitors, they start thinking, oh yeah, they are actually choosing us because of this and because of this, and they are saying this and this and this and this. And it's like an insightful moment for them to understand that actually they know a lot of this, but they're just not applying that. So our important goal is, first of all, to find out the missing pieces. Maybe they don't know some information about their competitors. Maybe they don't know that they have more avatars, or maybe they don't know about some specific pain points. So first of all, we try to find all of these missing pieces. Then we present this to them, and then after the presentation, we share with them our plan, how we will leverage this. So usually it's like that.
Yeah, it's okay to get specific and be very specific to who you're
Yeah,
talking to, because there is no general person. Like, everybody is a unique person, and the history of advertising has been getting more and more specific. Going back to
I
TV
agree with
advertising, like,
that.
you even there, you have to be specific to the people who are watching the shows that you're advertising against. You'll know by talking to the salespeople who the demographic is, kind of what their pain points are based off what they're watching. And as we've gotten, these digital platforms, like, they have the ability to show the right ad to the right person at the right time, and you can have basically create ads for specific people or very specific avatars. So
Yeah, I agree with you, and it's helping these platforms because, as you know, Facebook algorithm and other social media algorithms, they're super smart, and they know. I mean, after analyzing your creative and its copy, they know who is your avatar, and if you keep being vague, it's super hard, and like it's like whom I should found, like literally what's the target audience here. And if you are specific and even call out your audience, like, okay, I'm talking, like, for example, with all moms, or with all coaches, or with all like sport, I mean, people who would like to do some exercises and all of that, and even then go deeper into their like feelings, pain points, like what are their like feelings, why they want to buy your product. Definitely they have some issues that they'd like to resolve with your product, or maybe they want to make their life better or easier or healthier. So yeah, it's all about that.
all right, so foundations that we've kind of covered so far is changing your mindset from what got you to here is not what's going to take you to there. So there's going to be quite a bit of change. Really getting specific and knowing who your avatars are and not being afraid to talk directly to them. What are some of the other like foundational things that we kind of hit on the tracking layer? Do you want to talk a little bit more about that and making sure that's set up well?
Yeah, so tracking is super important, but usually it's not that. I mean, we have cases when it's complicated, and usually it happens when customers are using some custom CRMs and different platforms. I mean, I would recommend, my honest recommendation would be to keep it as simple and clear as possible. Like if you have like CRM, use some CRM. I mean, I know it might be more expensive, but it will be easier to connect some CRM that is well established and famous, and it has all of this tools for connection. Then also think where you host your web pages and which email system are you using, because all of this like small pieces, if they're working together, they're maximizing your results and revenue. But if they're not working together and you're constantly missing connection, your funnel is leaking, and some people are just not getting to your CRM, that's just the opportunities that you're losing. So yeah, definitely that's one more thing that we are evaluating before starting active management. So that's, as Tom already mentioned, we have this now first month or of setting up the, I'd say, solid basement for our future cooperation. And one of these activities that we are doing during this time is full audit of tracking, if everything is tracked correctly, if everything is connected. So yeah, it's super important. But yeah, as I said, if you keep things pretty simple and clear, it would be beneficial at the end of the day. I remember we had customers who had like 3 4 Facebook accounts, 3 4 Facebook pages, 3 4 pixels, then 3 4 like Klaviyo accounts, and all of this like things. And it really took weeks for us to reconnect things correctly. So instead of like, I would, if you're like just starting or if you're considering, I would say always keep it simple, not add additional like layers of complexity. It's not benefit, like literally.
Yeah, and I'd say probably one of the basic things that you should be doing on a pretty regular basis is getting the Facebook Pixel extension on Chrome and going through your whole funnel and making sure that
Yeah,
each of the events that are firing are actually firing at the step you want. And so you talked a little bit about a CRM layer. Is that mostly for like the offline conversion aspect?
No, actually, if we're collecting leads, for example, lead forms, then CRM should be connected to the Facebook, and also if we're running any campaign to the landing page, if CRM is not connected properly with landing page, then you could be missing some leads or some contact information, or even have some issues with fulfilling orders. So it's important in all cases, because at the end of the day, we as an agency, we want to go one step further, and we don't only track performance in Ads Manager. It's also for us important to know the backend result, the actual revenue that you got, or the actual amount of customers or amount of orders. And if there is an issue somewhere, then these results are not correct. That could be a huge, like,
Yeah.
I mean, huge mistake, an issue.
I know this is getting kind of basic, but like, what are the main pixels that whether it's a service or a product, should have on their site?
Do you mean which platforms?
Yeah.
Facebook Pixel, and then if they are running additional platforms, even if you believe, I would say this, even if you believe that at some point that social platform might be interesting for you, I would recommend to add Pixel in advance. For example, if you're selling beauty products, but you're not on TikTok yet or on Pinterest yet, I would recommend to dedicate some time and energy on that and add these pixels, because by the time you will decide you want to run ads, that pixel will already collect so much data that it would be much easier for you to start. So definitely you need to have a Facebook pixel, and then you need to set up tracking for Google through Google Tag Manager. And then I would just recommend to think about your future next steps. I mean, if you want to go on new platforms, and even if at some point in the future you consider possibility of adding that platform, I would recommend to add this pixels as well.
That's good advice. Anytime you have the smallest idea that you might run on a platform
Yeah,
someday,
yes,
just drop
yeah.
that pixel on your site, because it will start to teach that algorithm who your client is, that when you do start
Yeah.
running ads there, there's a lot more efficiency.
Yeah,
Okay.
it could take literally months for some new platforms, even like for TikTok in some cases. It could take months for Pixel to collect enough data to really maximize your performance and to get you best results possible. So if you want to save that time in the future and save a ton of money, because you will be constantly testing and spending money, I would recommend to do it like right now. If you see that your niche is even potentially good on these platforms, go and add pixels to your landing pages.
Right. So we spent all this time so far, and we haven't even talked about ads buying, right? So just kind of, the foundational stuff that we even alluded to, like the first starting to work with a customer. Let's talk a little bit about like our traffic harmonizer and our media buying strategy. How do you start to set that up and work with your clients to really talk about the customer journey that their customers are going to go on?
Yeah, so first of all, we always evaluate what is inside account before we start. So that's really important thing to see what's working for this specific account. I had experience when we started working with accounts, and just such an interesting thing, like just an example, ABO and CBO campaigns. And I noticed the thing that if account is trained and is performing, I mean, if all campaigns or majority of the campaigns were ABO, I won't recommend to launch CBO right away. So even like this small things, like what account is trained for. Like if you see that usually in account, this type of campaigns and this type of bidding is performing well, I would still suggest keeping that in mind, because even if you have like some best practices, okay, I would rather do this or that. If this was done in the account multiple times and there is a lot of budget behind that, and Pixel is trained and algorithm is trained using this methodology, I would recommend to keep this in mind. It doesn't mean you should stick with this setup and not change any things, but always know that you need to, like, I would prioritize that setup over like something else. So yeah, important first thing when you start working with new account is just not to start crushing everything and building from scratch, but evaluate what was working, why it was working, what wasn't working. And then during this analysis, you could also find out what is missing. Like, okay, this was done, but they could also like test this or do this or this. So important first step would be definitely like audit and analysis for the last 3-6 months, depending on the products offer and how long they are in business. And also, like, important thing, even though it's like Facebook ads, we cannot rely 100% on Facebook ads reporting. So you need to check backend for that period as well. So if you're analyzing last 3-6 months, you could see some things that are happening in Ads Manager. Super important is to go and double check what is happening on their backend, like Shopify or any other platform they're using. Because it might look like on Facebook they were like literally like 5-6x ROAS, and in reality, their revenue wasn't that big or their margins are not great. So yeah, that's first step what we do. And then usually we found like that really most businesses that came to us, they didn't use traffic harmonizer, they didn't have really separated levels of awareness. So it's like immediate thing that could be tested, implemented, and kind of quick win, because a lot of customers, they're missing some opportunities with retargeting, some very hot audiences. For example, for e-commerce stores, it could be people who added to cart but never made a purchase. That's super hot audience.
Right.
So
So we talked about our levels of awareness, like basically how warm somebody is to becoming a
yeah.
customer, whether they've never heard of you versus um, being ready to buy or even post buying. I know we talked a little bit about that. What are some of how do you set up campaigns for really cold audiences? Like,
So again, it depends on the type of the offer, on the goals, and how. I mean, if it's lead gen, it's one story. If it's e-commerce, it's different story. So if we are talking about specifically cold traffic, our rule is to exclude all warmer audiences. That's rule number one. Because if we are going after cold traffic, we just want to target people who never heard about us, who are not aware about us, and they might not even be aware about their problem or solution of their problem. It's also important to know that if you're going after level 1 traffic, or like even sometimes we call it level 0, it might be wise to dedicate part of your budget on nurturing and educating this audience, because it's definitely not the best solution just to come to them and say, okay, here's the offer, 40% off, you will like it, just take it or leave. Like that's not what we would recommend in this case. So for level 1 audiences, called audiences, I would suggest to, as I mentioned, to try to nurture and educate these audiences, to talk more about your brand, to talk more about your product. If you're talking about specific setup, if we are just trying to test more audiences, I would recommend to stick to ABO campaigns. And as it's like using latest best practices, lately we're combining ads in bigger stacks. So lately we're not, I mean, if before, like year ago and maybe even 2 years ago, even like longer time ago, we were trying to figure out which specific interest is bringing us results. Now we are more about like, okay, we need quite big audience, and if with the right messaging, Facebook will be able to find our target audience.
so just to kind of rephrase that, what you're saying is that what traditionally would happen is you'd have to tell Facebook which interest and audience to go after, but now you tell Facebook, go find anybody that will resonate with this specific message.
Yeah, it's not like sometimes, yeah, sometimes we go wild and broad, but in most cases we still are using some interest, but now we're just using a lot of combinations of interest to make sure that that audience is big enough. So it's not like about granularity of targeting, and it's really dangerous like tactics to rely entirely on interest, because I don't know if you're aware about that, but Facebook is constantly removing more and more interest. So it's really dangerous tactic when you're relying just on few interests. That's why we want to. That's one additional reason why we are not doing that. So usually we just go. So usually we just try to go wider and combine a few interests, at least a few interests, or it might be even a few dozen interests, to make the audience big enough. And then with the right messaging and right creative, Facebook finds us the audience that we need there.
Nice. So we've kind of been very like Facebook focused on this part of like the traffic. How about Google? Like what are some must do's that every company must do for Google ads, and what are a little bit more maybe intermediate tactics?
Yeah, so if you are a e-commerce store, then you definitely need to have shopping campaign. That's super quick win and number one suggestion. If you are a e-commerce store, start running shopping campaign. Also, there is there is a room on. I mean, there is something that you could how you could maximize your revenue and squeeze more from your traffic. So after people are seeing your ads on Facebook, and we were talking about cold traffic, usually they go and Google the brand name or Google this offer. So if you want to make sure that you're converting these people, then we would still recommend you to dedicate some budget, not a super big budget, but some budget on brand search campaign. That's for sure, just to make sure that you're not missing the people who would like to buy a product from you, but when they Google you, they actually don't see you in the list. That's literally like, why should I buy from you? What I'd like to say that it's really tricky because these campaigns tend to perform super well, and some of our customers, we saw this a lot of times, then they were like thinking, okay, this Google is showing us 8x ROAS, probably I should increase my spend by 10 times on these brand search campaigns because they're working so great. So again, reiterating my explanation here, it's mostly because it's helping to convert people who were already in the mindset of purchase and they were just Googling for your brand. So you want to be there, you want to be in that list, but you don't want to spend a fortune there because it's just not, it's in reality, it's not bringing you new people. If you want to bring in leverage level 1 audience, then you should definitely try non-brand search. It could be for people who are actually aware about their problem and aware about the solution, but they don't know about you.
Yeah. So going back to like the brand search, that's kind of like in the same bucket as retargeting, right? Where it's like people are so warm, they just need to, you have to make sure that you're in front of them when they're ready to buy. But
Yes.
you can't spend tons of money on retargeting and increase your scale there because all the work happens higher upstream with the colder traffic.
Yes, and that's the discussion we have with our customers as well. I just had this discussion this week with customer when we were deeping dive into the ratio of first time and returning customers and talking about healthy structure. So we had customers where like 70% of their revenue was coming from returning customers. It's a dangerous situation. It's really dangerous scenario for your business, and you don't want to be in this scenario because you are relying so much on retargeting audience and you are actually losing an opportunity because you're not acquiring enough cold audience, like you're not acquiring enough first time customers and new customers. And if you want your business to grow and scale, it's essential for you to get new people and to get new customers in the door. So it's very important to keep an eye on that ratio. And if you see that it's concerning, then you could take some steps to help with that. We just discussed this with one of our customers, and we talked about specific level 1 campaigns, specific promo codes, programs for first-time customers that could encourage people to make that first purchase. And then with the right customer service, with the right product, these customers will be yours like forever or for a longer time.
So this is something we talked about, talked about a little bit before the show of your advertising doesn't really stop when they become a customer. And like an example you gave is like, we have a customer where people are buying their app, but not really using it. Like, can you talk a little bit about that situation and what you would suggest?
Yes, so important thing is not just acquire customer, but engage with that customer after that purchase to make sure that they are really getting benefits from your product. So, there are a lot of businesses that are relying on some programs or some apps that you could get. And there is a huge issue with, in this kind of businesses, they have a huge issues with drop-offs. When customers, they are just deciding, okay, I want this, I buy this. It's like impulse buy. And then a few days later, oh, I don't like this. I want a refund. I want to cancel my subscription. I actually or in another case, they just never go back to that app. So it's Probably the best tool here would be to conduct surveys, because that will be the best way to learn more your customers, to learn why they stopped using your app, what they liked, what they didn't like. But next logical step after conducting surveys would be to actually take some steps to evaluate these things. Like, first, it's very important first step to conduct survey, but the next important step would be to actually do something with this and make sure that you are engaging with the customers after the purchase. So your communication shouldn't be stopped. Like, okay, you made the purchase, but like, thank you for becoming our customer. Like, good luck with using our app. Their onboarding process with using your product and offer is super important. If you will give them enough support, and if you provide them enough enough support probably, and if you will be constantly in touch with them during that time and make sure that the onboarding is smooth, you could get your customers for a longer period. And talking about retention, we know how important it is for all businesses. So I would definitely recommend not to stop communicating with your customers after they make a purchase. Ask their opinion, support them during the onboarding process, share with them tips. For example, you just sold them some product, but do they actually know how to use your product? Maybe you know some tips and tricks how to use it better. Maybe you could share with them some tutorials. Maybe you could share with them some useful tips from experts how to use it. Or maybe you have another product that could be a great additional thing to this product. So definitely don't miss this opportunity. Keep in mind that retention is super important, as well as acquiring new customers, but retention is important for each business as well. And through constant support and right communication, you could achieve that.
So Anthony asked the biggest question that's always on every client and media buyer's mind is how do you split the traffic or the budget between cold and warm traffic?
So we just have really like best practice and golden rule. Usually like up to 70-80% of budget we dedicate to cold traffic, and only 20-30 depending on, again, on type of offer, type of business, on retargeting or warm traffic. So if I talk about our traffic harmonizer, it will be 60, 70, 80% on level one, so cold audiences, people who are not aware about you, about your brand, about your product. Then second biggest chunk would be level two. So these are just people who are aware about you. They might saw your ads, they were on your website, they might even follow you. So it's like warmer audience. It's not like really warm or hot audience. So it depends on kind of the business, but you could spend like 10 to maybe 15, some cases 20% of your budget there. Then level three, people who viewed content, this would be like smaller part. And then people who added to cart but didn't make a purchase, this is super hot audience. This is the this really super low hanging fruit for all e-commerce stores. But you cannot spend there like a fortune. If just like, and also important thing to keep in mind that some of our customers, they forget about. If you spend enough money on level one, and if you acquire a lot of like if you're spending enough money on acquiring cold audience, then you could actually eventually spend more on retargeting, just because you have enough people there. But if your budget for level one is super small, you won't be able to spend more on retargeting, and you won't be able to spend a lot on level four, just because you won't have enough people there. And level four are people who added to cart and didn't make a purchase, our hot audience. And also, in most cases, we're considering that not just a retarget. I mean, it's still retargeting, but some post purchase, as we discussed before. It will be targeting level 5 audiences with some restock options or cross selling or upselling. So this is super small part of the budget usually, but it's working pretty well.
Yeah, it's always really tempting to spend lots of money on the highest return on investment, but it really is the biggest part of the budget has to go to the prospecting, to finding people to get through
Yeah,
that funnel.
in the
Otherwise,
fun. Yeah.
I mean, otherwise people are you're just gonna get such a high frequency because you're spending money to be in front of people over and over again that are likely
And
or not.
in some cases, Facebook is not even spending money. So if the audience is small enough, I mean, it's not working in all cases. I don't know what's the reason, but in some cases, Facebook even stops spending the money, and you could increase the budget, but Facebook won't spend the whole budget just because there isn't enough people in that audience.
Yeah. All right. So, kind of want to hit on how Facebook is performing at the moment, because it's something we talk about pretty regularly when we have these kind of meta calls, like how they're performing for our clients. So, what's your take on that?
So I know that a lot of people are talking, and we are talking about this inside the agency, that April is not the best month regarding performance. So we are seeing that performance is worse and auction is more competitive for a lot of our customers. And interesting fact, we're not seeing the same thing for US and Europe. So for Europe, it's still performing pretty well, but in like last few weeks are pretty challenging on the US market. There might be a lot of reasons for that. And also, after like really great January and February, which is coming after like January months, April is a bit like something in the middle, like it's not summer yet, but it's not January, and that might be a reason too. And many other reasons. The most interesting thing, probably how we try to how we still want to improve situation in this case. So first of all, we still believe that for specifically for the periods like this, it's super important is testing your creatives and having creative strategy. Because when times like this coming, usually how do you see that? So you have some few best performing creatives in the account, but the results are becoming more expensive and expensive and expensive, and at some point you need to kill some of the ads that are not performing really well. And the worst case scenario, you don't have anything else to put in front of customers instead of the things that you killed. So still, I would say that creative testing is super important. And when challenging times are coming and you see that things that worked before, like 2-3 weeks, month ago, are not working anymore, you need to have something else. You need to have some additional ads that you will start and try and start testing them. So you will have and you might even find some new best performing ads. So that's why we're always talking about importance of constant testing in the account, of constant testing and trying new types of creatives, new types of ad copy. I know, Tom, that you like a lot, and we also like to give a try to new ideas like using AI for creating maybe some creatives or ad copy. And yeah, I would say that definitely give it a try. I mean, these options, they might not be like ideal, but they are becoming better and better. All of these AI tools, they are actually like getting more and more learnings, and they are becoming better. So definitely, if you're struggling with performance, it feels that nothing is working, that could be a fresh idea to test.
Yeah, and I do love ChatGPT and AI in general, and I think it is a really good use case for this specifically when you are experiencing poor performance in your ad account. I mean, there's probably nothing wrong technically as long as you've set everything up well. So there's a few things that you have control over. One is your landing page experience, but really kind of comes down to messaging and creative. And the one
Yeah.
thing I would be doing as a creative would be taking our best performing ads, and whether that's a video or ad copy. And in the case of the video, I'd transcribe that. I'd put that into ChatGPT and say, this worked really well for me. Give me 5 other ideas or 5 other scripts similar to this that I can make and try. Like
Hmm.
same thing with copy. Like, this copy worked really well. Give me 5 variations or something similar or slightly different copy that we can try. And I think that takes a lot of the brain power and stress off of people to come
Hmm.
up with new ideas all the time. Like, ChatGPT is a great tool for coming up with ideas.
Yeah, I
The
agree with
final output might be a little bit vague, so that's where your expertise as a creative or a marketer is going to be required to polish something. But for coming up with ideas to test, I would be using ChatGPT all the way. Anthony has another question. How often do you refresh ad creative and copy?
Yeah, so ideally, you want to split the budget and you want to spend some of your budget on things that are performing well, but you want to be testing new options all the time. So ideally, you want to spend majority of your budget on the things that are working, are performing, are bringing you stable results. But you also want to dedicate some of the budget, like it's up to you. It depends on like how flexible you are. I mean, your margins, your offer, everything. But you could dedicate up to like 20-30% of your budget on constant testing of new things, new hooks, new content ideas, new type of creatives, new ad copy, and everything. Because as I mentioned, and as we're discussing, the day will come when your old best performing things won't work as they were, and you will need to have something new. So that's why I would say that you need to be constantly testing new things.
Yeah. All right, so we've kind of covered the full gamut of changing our mindset, making sure tracking's set up well, diving deep into your avatar, know who they are, and getting specific in your messaging. Kind of how to set up the different channels to optimize both cold traffic and warmer traffic, and then people who are searching for your brand. We hit on the creative aspect of like taking your deep dive research and turning that into actual creatives. Is there anything else that we're missing for kind of the foundations of marketing?
I also wanted to add one thing, like regarding the testing of best performing things, that I see that a lot of people are missing and they're surprised when we recommend that. If you have something that is performing really well, just create one more iteration of that thing. I mean, our clients are I don't know why they always look surprised when we suggest this. We're like, okay, here's best performing video. Let's like add additional like footage at the beginning, add additional like slide at the beginning, or add additional like things, or even change a bit like I don't know, maybe the design, or change add a few elements, and it could be crushing as well. So my recommendation, if you have something that's working, yeah, definitely ask for more fresh ideas from AI. But in the meantime, you could try to test some quick iterations. If you have ad copy, if it's longer ad copy, just remove a few sentences like in the middle or at the beginning, what will make sense, what will make more sense, and give it a try. That could be like, it's super simple, super easy. It doesn't require a lot of like time and energy, and it could help you a lot if you don't have new content.
Yeah.
So just had that thought that decided to share.
Anthony has another question about how do you determine when to kill a creative that you're testing?
So it depends on your KPI. For example, if you know that KPI for this account is CPA below $30, if you see that some creative is bringing you purchases at like 40, 50, or even like 35. So how I usually think about this, when you spend less, uh, usually the results tend to be better. So you want your like really good creative to be way lower than your KPI or way higher than your KPI. So if it's like, even if it's like your KPI is like $30 and your testing creative is 29, I would still kill it. Then second thing, you need to keep in mind the budget that was spent on that creative. If you, I would say, if you give it like 3-5, it depends on the account, 3-5, in some cases it could be 7 days, and you see that Facebook is not spending money on that creative and Facebook is deliberately spending money on other creatives, most likely this creative won't work. But if you have strong beliefs and strong, like you really want to test this creative, then you will go and launch it in separate campaign to force Facebook spend money. Also, like, keep in mind, like, if the budget, if you see that this on this creative Facebook spent already 3-5 times more than your KPI. For example, you spent your KPI is $30, your CPA, and the ad spent on this creative is 150 or even 100, I would kill it. I mean, it's not performing. But it's all depends on the context, you know. If you are I'm talking about like pretty stable performance when you have things that are bringing you results. But if you don't have things that are performing, if account is struggling, you just pick the ones that are performing the best. That's just a comparison thing. Like, okay, this is outperforming, I would leave this, and all others I would kill. So
If
ideally, yeah.
I was gonna say, if an ad is not getting spend, is there actually a reason to kill it?
In most cases, Facebook is showing us that it's not the best ad. In most cases, we saw this. Like, I mean, if I really want to test this creative, I believe it's another hook or it's important for me to test, I would force Facebook and launch it in a separate ad set. But I've done this multiple times, and I would say in more than 50% of cases, that ad won't be a winner. Facebook is just showing you, okay, I mean, it spends some money. It's really rare cases when you don't see any spend. Usually it's just a few bucks per day. So Facebook, it just sees that there is no traction and dedicate more budget on other ads in most cases. So I would still say that it's a first sign that that's not the best creative. So again, when you're testing, like, if that's just another variation, because sometimes we just test super small variation. If it's just another kind of video which you just don't know, maybe you have different color of taglines there, maybe it's not even worth launching in separate ad set, and that sign could be strong enough not test. But if it's like something important that you really believe in, then I would say, yeah, you could force Facebook to spend money on that.
We have a question from Fazil. I'm not sure if you feel good about answering this one. If not, we'll redirect him to come back when we have the Google team on. So he wanted to ask about Google ad campaign strategy for travel agencies, including the goal, type of bidding strategies, and keywords.
Yeah, so again, it probably will be better answered by our Google team. But what I would say that, yeah, there is this super specific question, call type bidding, and I would still say that for travel agency, probably brand search and non-brand search would be like first things to start, and then keywords and everything. So yeah, I'd rather not to start suggest here, because I really don't have specific experience in running like Google ads for travel agencies. I could just provide some general recommendations. So yeah.
Anthony says put it on Performance Max.
Yeah, that could be an idea, but you know, now we have second thoughts about Performance Max, and that I'm hearing like more and more. The issue with Performance Max is that it's like a black box in Google. Like, you put things inside there, like you see some performance, but you never know what actually worked that well. So that's like a second like thing to consider, that it's like it's really, you don't have a lot of impact there, and you don't have a lot of insights about the performance, which could what could, and this thing could, and not could be, it is super important for you as a marketer to understand not only, okay, I got great results, but why did I get this great results?
Well, Fazil, I think I'm going to suggest that can go check out some of our Google episodes, but I'm going to pass this question on to Nick who's been pretty deep in all of our Google stuff, and see if he'll record a video that we can post on our socials answering this specific question.
Specific question, yeah, with keywords and bidding strategy and everything, yeah.
Yeah. Great. Is there anything else that's foundational to marketing and customers coming on to Tier 11 as like really their first agency experience?
So yeah, for customers who never worked with other agencies, it's a bit it's like different, as we talked about mindset a lot. It could be switch of mindset, where like they could get advices and suggestions about the things that they never expected, because most of them are coming for Facebook ads or Google ads or some other ads. And when they come and we start we start literally like checking everything, it's like, okay, you need to change this and this. So this might be quite an interesting thing, and this definitely requires a lot of education and explanation from our from our team. And we always try to do our best, and not just to provide the results, but also explain the customers how we got this results.
Yeah, and
yeah,
I think
important.
Yeah, for us, our customer acquisition amplification framework is kind of how we do everything, and we're going to be even a lot more strict with that moving forward. Of these are the things that we feel are foundational to having success digitally, and they will either have to be able to show us that they can provide that themselves, or we're going to have to do it for them. And those core pieces are the tracking layer, the creative lab, traffic harmonizer, and conversion architecture. It's really the full customer journey. And so moving forward, that's going to be like how we work with all of our clients. And if you are interested in checking out that graphic, we will be updating it soon, but currently it's pretty robust. And if you go to tier11.com/camp, Olha, thank you very much for joining us today and talking through a lot of these kind of foundational things to have success when coming and working with Tier 11. And hopefully there's stuff that you can implement yourself at home, at work.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So thank you, Olha. And if you are interested in working with Tier 11 or exploring how we can help support your digital acquisition, head over to tier11.com. There's lots of information there, and there's a big pink button where we'll hop on a strategy call with you and talk through what your goals are and see if we can be of assistance. Well, thank you very much. And until next time, if you enjoy our content, like and share. And otherwise, thank you very much, Olha.
Yeah, thank you.